me down as scared and horny.
When was the last time you heard someone talk about Finn?
Finn is Finn. And ask about Finn. You see Finn before I do. Finn.
And Rey. Not just Finn or Rey, but actually both of them.
Just the two of us. We can make it if we try.
And I don't mean what did Finn want to tell Rey in The Rise of Skywalker.
Rey! Rey, I never told you when!
So what was it? What you were going to tell me?
When?
When you were sinking in the sand, you said, I never told you.
I'll tell you later. What were you gonna tell Rey before? You still on that? Oh, I'm sorry, is this a bad time?
Or what did Rey want to tell Finn in The Last Jedi?
If you see Finn before I do, tell him. Yeah, perfect. Tell him that.
2 hours later.
Well, we're waiting.
Why you two like this? I'm talking about them together, not just romantically, because we already know how Rey and Finn were supposed to end up together before Disney put the kibosh on it.
And we all know why.
I'm talking about Finn and Rey as the characters that were sold as the heroes of the sequel trilogy. You know, remember that? Good times.
Daisy Ridley came to audition for this movie, and this young woman walked in who had limitless potential.
Oh, do you remember at the end as well? What? So on the last day, JJ brought the whole crew. He did a little speech and then obviously went and shook everyone's hands.
The more that we work together, audition, the more scenes that she has done, the more she has proven that there's nothing I can think of that she can't do. Daisy Ridley.
For me, I just felt to myself like this is the start of something new.
He had to be funny, he had to be tough, he had to be vulnerable, he had to be authentic and real. Every time we worked together, I think we all feel he just made it seem so easy, and it's not. John Boyega.
It feels like a lifetime ago when Finn and Rey are talked about as the heroes of the sequel trilogy in the same breath, in the same vein. I mean, yeah, you got some people who do it. I mean, some people besides Michael Cogg, who is, yo, you get invited to the cookout, man. I like you, Michael Cogg. You get invited to the cookout, man. And this is pretty insane when you realize Finn and Rey started the sequel trilogy together. The Force Awakens wasn't Rey and Kylo working together. It wasn't Rey, Finn, and Poe.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
The Force Awakens was Finn and Rey becoming fugitives from the First Order. He was the renegade stormtrooper who chose to rebel because of his refusal to kill civilians, and she was the mysterious scavenger looking for her place in the galaxy. We watched them fight, cry together, win together, and lose together. We watched them go from strangers to Finn being willing to die for Rey, and Rey being willing to die with Finn. Finn and Rey's relationship wasn't just important to The Force Awakens, it was The Force Awakens. From its story to the way it was marketed itself, we saw their actors, John Boyega and Daisy Ridley, everywhere together, on magazines, posters, interviews, merchandise. There's a literal documentary attached to The Force Awakens, just about Finn and Rey, and that's called The Scavenger and the Stormtrooper. These two characters were so damn integral to the first chapter of the trilogy, and it was a different dynamic than we've ever seen before in the movies. There was no trio by literal design of the film's story. There wasn't a Jedi Council or even a Jedi Master showing them the way. And if you took one of them out of the story falls apart. For as much as people talk about The Force Awakens being a remake, their relationship is the most original aspect of The Force Awakens. It's the most original aspect of the sequel trilogy. Well, outside of Finn himself. Now, don't get me wrong, The Force Awakens definitely has its visual callbacks and references and even familiar narrative beats, but so does another film that we're not gonna talk about today. Maybe another day.
I think George Lucas gonna sue somebody.
Finn doesn't get a medal at the end of The Force Awakens. There is no celebration for him. He risks his entire life to save Rey, and it ends up with him in a coma. Rey doesn't get to keep the only person in her life that she's grown to care for, that she's fallen for. She has to say goodbye to him, and she doesn't know when she's going to see him again. If you remove the significance of Finn and Rey's relationship or hollow it out, The Force Awakens falls apart. It loses its core story, development, the themes of identity, sacrifice, and love. So, for the sake of comparison, what would the original trilogy look like if you erased the relationship between Luke and Han, or between Luke and Leia? What would the prequel trilogy look like if you erased the relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, or Padme Amidala and Anakin? What would The Mandalorian look like if you erased the relationship between Din and Grogu? If you remove an integral relationship that the story built up and that was completely tied to the development of those characters, not only did the characters lose their purpose, they lose their development. Finn and Rey's dynamic and how important it was to the story may have been entirely new to Star Wars, but it's common in other films, especially films that have a man with some type of shady life who meets a woman with a mysterious past. The two most mainstream stories I can think of that match The Force Awakens in terms of the dynamic between Finn and Rey is the animated films Anastasia and Tangled. Finn is a fugitive, Dimitri is a fugitive, Flynn is a fugitive. They're snarky and smart mouth at times.
Well, thanks for that.
Hey, I'm not the one who chased you down with a stick. Back to Jack. Why does everyone want to go back to Jack?
All right, Blondie.
Rapunzel.
Gesundheit. Oh, come on! What is it gonna take for me to get my satchel back?
Yeah, I hate that woman. If we live through this, remind me to thank you.
But there is a sense of introspection about them that makes you realize much of that bravado is just an act, mostly because they never had anyone in their life to affirm that they were worthy, so they never saw themselves as worthy.
She's the princess.
I know, but...
No, you don't know. She's the real thing, Vlad.
That means our Anya has found her family. And you...
will walk out of her life forever.
Well...
Princesses don't marry kitchen boys.
I'm a stormtrooper. Like all of them, I was taken from a family I'll never know and raised to do one thing. On my first battle, I made a choice. I wasn't gonna kill for them. So I ran right into you. You looked at me like no one ever had. I was ashamed of what I was.
Well, that's the good part, I guess. You get to go find a new dream. Rapunzel. You are my new dream.
Then you have a woman with a mysterious past. The woman has a sense of isolation and loneliness from the larger world that she's a part of, yet not involved in. And this gives off this innocent naivety about them.
I know all about waiting. For my family. They'll be back. One day.
How is it you don't have a clue to who you were before you came to us, but you can remember all that?
I do have a clue to...
I know. Together in Paris.
I've charted stars, and they're always constant. But these? They appear every year on my birthday, Mother. Only on my birthday.
The man and the woman meet.
What's your hurry, thief?
What? Thief? Ow!
Alone at last.
And what are you circling me? What were you, a vulture in another life? As a duchess when you're sleeping on a damp floor?
Both are instantly drawn to each other. It becomes clear as time goes on that they've developed feelings for each other, but things get complicated. The man told a lie at the start of their relationship, and it's quickly catching up with him, and there's a fear that the truth could come between or even destroy the relationship he's built up with a woman. And it turns out this woman may be more important than she thought, and the family she was looking for may also be another family that she's heard of. The man willingly walks out of her life after admitting the truth, leaving her hurt, and it's around this time that she learns the truth about herself.
What is that?
This? Well, I've always had it ever since before I can remember.
May I?
The music box. To sing me to sleep when you were in Paris.
Oh, Anastasia. My Anastasia.
Whomever you're waiting for on Jakku, they're never coming back, but there's someone who still could.
Yet the antagonist of the film has found her, so the man rushes back into the fray, knowing that he's way out of his element, but does so anyway because he loves her. The man manages to save the woman, but he is gravely hurt in the process, and the woman steps up and defends the man that she loves, like he defended her. It's a touching moment where these two strangers are brought back together, and the woman realizes that what she wanted, the belonging she was looking for, was right in front of her, the one who almost died for her, and didn't care what she really was or who she was, just if she was happy. Can you imagine removing Flynn or Dimitri from their respective stories? Can you imagine actually thinking that they had no relevance to the other protagonists of their stories? Could you imagine making a sequel to Anastasia or Tangled that completely sidelines the male lead of those stories and frames the relationship between the two heroes as almost non-existent or even selfish? Would you then make another sequel to that sequel that tried to bring back the original dynamic in the relationship between those two heroes, but then have it sidelined again due to a need to make the antagonist of the first film a hero who the heroine now randomly has feelings for? If you can't,
Congratulations! Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Congratulations.
congratulations, you're a logical person. It's just a shame Disney and Lucasfilm weren't that logical. When you spend $360 million on the first chapter of your trilogy, it may be a good idea to actually honor that story and not retroactively make it irrelevant by ignoring everything good about it or undo literally everything it's set up. But you know, that conversation is a different video, the undoing part. You see, people like to forget a few important details when they talk about the original trilogy and compare it to the sequel trilogy. The original trilogy was not supposed to be a trilogy at first. There was only one vision for that trilogy to make sure everything was consistent regardless of the different directors. It was in the 70s and 80s. George didn't have nearly the resources or money that Disney Lucasfilm has, nor was there a precedent for making trilogies like George Lucas had made. And finally, when George Lucas set out to make a prequel trilogy, it was a lot more consistent within itself, for better or worse, than the original trilogy was with itself. There was no incest, kissing, or newly discovered fathers or sisters in the prequel trilogy. For better or worse, what it was the same story from beginning to end. It just evolved. Regardless of the direction of the story in the original trilogy, what stayed the same was the fact that Luke cared for Han and Leia more than anything, even though we saw the relationship between the three change, evolve, and grow. The only reason Luke ever began to care about Vader was that Vader turned out to be his father, Anakin Skywalker.
I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
Why wish you become Jedi?
Mostly because of my father, I guess. I know, Father.
So, you have accepted the truth.
I've accepted the truth that you were once Anakin Skywalker, my father.
Take that reveal away, and Luke is back wanting to kill Vader for the murder of his father and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Every single change that happened in the original trilogy, George at least tried to develop it and resolve the original status quo. Even Luke and Leia being related, the most criticized change George made during the run of the original trilogy, was addressed in Return of the Jedi.
All right. I understand. Fine. When he comes back, I won't get in the way.
It's not like that at all. He's my brother.
Han was willing to step aside for Luke and Leia to be together because he did know they were related. This is directly addressing the rivalry Han and Luke had for Leia's affection, something that existed since A New Hope.
So, what do you think of her, hon?
Trying not to, kid.
Good.
Still a lot of spirit. I don't know. What do you think? You think a princess and a guy like me?
No.
You're beautiful.
Meanwhile, the sequels never did that for Rey and Finn. Instead, their relationship was left hanging in mid-air. It wasn't killed, it wasn't developed, it wasn't addressed. Basically, it was put in this weird limbo where no one wants to talk about it because, well, the real reason it never went anywhere was because of racism. And I know someone's gonna say, oh, that's not the case. Yes, that was the case. I'm sorry. Now, Alan Dean Foster has talked about this. Jedi Paxis has briefly mentioned this. We've had leaks mention this. And of course, we have John Boyega's GQ interview, but
what more do you want from from me!
To put it simply, the reason why Finn and Rey's relationship never went anywhere is because Disney said no to an interracial relationship. There really isn't some big conspiracy behind it. The problem with erasing Finn and Rey's relationship was that their relationship was the most important development Finn and Rey had gotten as characters. It's not just that they grew close, their development, them growing as people, their character arcs in The Force Awakens, what made them three-dimensional, was tied to each other. And if you look at a lot of the creative choices made in The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker as a reflection of Disney's demand to sideline Finn, it paints a pretty clear picture.
What are you doing? Come on. Stop taking my hand.
Are you okay?
Yeah. Follow me.
They look like that.
Easy. He's hurt. You got a heartbeat.
You looked at me like no one ever had. I was ashamed of what I was. But I'm done with the First Order. I'm never going back. Rey, come with me.
Don't go.
Take care of yourself. Please.
You have no place in this story. You come from nothing. You're nothing. But not to me. Join me.
Please.
Now, don't get me wrong, The Last Jedi may not be the first instance Finn was sidelined. In fact, Finn was getting sidelined all the way as early as 2016. But The Last Jedi, even within the context of not developing Finn's relationship with Rey, completely dropped the ball with him as a former stormtrooper and as a Force-sensitive character, which he was from the beginning. Which was said by the editor of The Force Awakens, which John Boyega has said, which J.J. Abrams has said.
We don't know that Finn isn't a Jedi. Do you know that he's not? So, yeah, we were really aware of that he's, you know, obviously he's special because he decided not to go, he went against his training as a stormtrooper.
The previous draft, it was actually a conversation between Rey and Finn. They actually talked it out. There was a scene where Rey already knew, like he stopped her in the Falcon and was gonna let her know that he had the Force. He had felt it ever since he left the First Order. Like that energy, that was the motivating factor, and he's known it for a very long time. And Rey, in that scene, Rey stopped him and said, Finn, I knew for a long time, like since the moment I met you, that you were strong with the Force. I knew there was something about you.
Vindication!
It doesn't matter if Finn killed Phasma in a shiny-looking boss battle. Finn went from fighting Kylo fucking Ren, the apprentice of Snoke, to Captain Phasma that wasn't even in The Last Jedi till it was time for her to die. And this is no shade to Captain Phasma or the wonderfully tall Gwendolyn Christie.
You're a lucky man.
God, I love that one. She's just another wasted character and a wasted actor who's not used properly in the film. She exists to die. She exists to say, well, at least Finn did something in the movie. There's no character behind it. And the funny thing behind this is there was actually a scene that had character behind it for both Phasma and Finn, and I have no idea why it was cut. But there's a connection to Finn's relationship with Rey, taking a back seat in The Last Jedi, to the overall insulting, disappointing arc that was attached to Finn in the film as well.
You're a selfish traitor.
You're a selfish traitor.
You don't know a thing about me. Where I'm from, what I've seen. You don't know the First Order like I do.
You're a selfish traitor.
I made a choice. I wasn't gonna kill for them.
Good guys, bad guys, made up words.
Kill them all.
Good guys, bad guys, made up words.
Like all of them, I was taken from a family I'll never know and raised to do one thing.
Good guys, bad guys, made up words. Made up words.
Right!
Made up words. Made up words.
Finn's core in The Force Awakens was compassion. His contention was survival. His conclusion was the survival of the innocent, no matter the cost to himself. His flaw was the lack of self-worth he had for himself.
You looked at me like no one ever had. I was ashamed of what I was.
This is who Finn is from the moment we meet him, yet we didn't learn all this about him till later in the film. It's only when Finn is forced with a choice of his own survival that he chooses to pick up the Skywalker lightsaber, look past his trauma, look past his pain, and willingly charge into death time after time after time. There are some people that will describe Finn's connection to the Force or his relationship with Rey as either fan service or Finn not being his own character, that his connection to the Force makes his choice to leave the First Order less impactful and his relationship with Rey less of a character. This is ironic considering no one has ever said the Force calling to Rey made her choices less impactful, and let's not even get started about how the Last Jedi said that Rey is strong in the Force because Kylo is strong in the Force. And I can't even name how many people say that Rey's story was only important if it revolved around Kylo Ren. Finn's relationship with Rey, his connection to the Force, is tied to his stormtrooper past. It all goes hand in hand. These aren't moments that happen in seclusion. You can't have a story that just addresses one without addressing all three. Rey's relationship with Finn, romantic or not, is something deeply tied to her development as a character. What opens Rey up as a person, what shows her that there is life beyond her past, beyond a sense of loneliness and desperation and waiting for people to come back that may not even be her family, is her relationship with Finn. We see how his kindness at first confuses her, then we see how the removal of his presence triggers something deep inside her, and we see how his eventual return and rescue of her means so much to her, because she realized the person that can come back for her, the person that was her belonging, was Finn. Finn's relationship with Rey isn't about defining Rey by a man, it's about Rey realizing that she doesn't need to look to the past to define herself, that regardless of where she came from or where she was going, there are people in her life who will care about her regardless of all that, and everything about her arc is tied through her development with Finn, because Finn and Rey develop as people together. Yes, there are things about their development as characters that are separate from each other, but they help each other grow. This is what humans do. This is why relationships are important in the real world, whether they are romantic or platonic. But when the relationship like Finn and Rey's was framed as romantic, it shouldn't be something that is shamed, because I don't know, the internet hates romance when it's biracial, or just something about the internet just hated Finn and Rey being together. But when it came to trying to hook the characters up with other people, it was okay, I'm getting off topic. Now, I can talk about how erasing Finn and Rey's relationship was damaging to their characters for so much longer, and I'm sure there's at least one or two people out there who want me to. In fact, I know there are people who want me to, because they send me messages every single day that I should.
What more do you want from me?
I know, sis, I know. I said I was gonna make this months ago, but I did, okay? I did. Everyone tell my sister I made the video, okay? 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 We're cool? We're cool? We're cool? Okay.
I felt incredibly sad when we ended. Yeah. I felt lost. It just felt so sad. I just loved everyone.
Yeah. It's a new beginning. A new hope.
What happens to Finn and Rey, now as characters, both as individuals and together? There's been a recent demand for Finn to get his own spin-off, away from the characters we've seen before, away from Rey, in order to develop him as a person, as his own character. And while I admit, I am one of those people who want Finn to grow as his own character and stop having people view him as something he's not, because as bad as his story was in the sequel trilogy, there was this misconception that the only thing he did was yell, and that's not the actual problem with Finn's story. If anyone says all Finn did was yell Rey in the sequel trilogy, then they didn't pay attention to Finn's story in the sequel trilogy. The main problem with Finn's story in the sequel trilogy was that he was underutilized criminally, considering his background, considering even with the flaws of The Force Awakens, his story was very original. There was something compelling about his character. There were many places he could go, but the character didn't go anywhere close to his full potential. That's the problem with Finn as a character. It's not that all he did was scream Rey, it's that everything he could have done, which involved the Force, a Stormtrooper rebellion, or even developing his relationship with Rey, didn't go where it could have gone, and we know why it didn't go where it could have gone.
Hey everybody, it's me, Mickey Mouse. Say, did somebody mention the door to darkness?
There's also the fact that Rey is a key part of Finn's life, just as he's a part of hers. To separate them just out of spite because of how Disney Lucasfilm and also the fandom
I got that out of my system. What's next?
have horribly mishandled these two characters is not just detrimental to their futures, but it's also terribly depressing given how many racists had demanded these two characters stay apart. And I'm not just talking about the racists who wanted to boycott The Force Awakens, but we're not gonna get into that because they know who they are. If there was to be a Finn spinoff, I'm not against it just being about Finn, and also Geena, given the fact that various reports and Chris Terrio has said she was originally supposed to be Finn's sister. Yet for any spinoff about Finn, it has to address the things that the sequel trilogy did not develop. His connections to the Stormtrooper, his connection to the Force, and finally, his connection with Rey. It has to develop all these things further and actually pay them off. Out of all the sequel trilogy characters, I would say Finn was the best of them, at least conceptually. I know everyone will trip over themselves to say Kylo Ren, and Kylo Ren turns out to be the character who got the most attention in the story, but conceptually he's just Anakin and Vader done pretty badly, at least in the later films. In The Force Awakens he was actually pretty interesting.
I really learned a lot, and people are gonna love the new me.
Yet the problem with Finn is his story, not his character. Yet as of now, he seems to be the only character that fans still feel strongly enough about to make him trend at least once a month. And by trend, I mean like on Twitter. But once a month, people start talking about him. Usually because I start a ruckus and start complaining. But you know, that is who I am as a person. If you follow me on Twitter, you know I talk about Finn a lot. I mean, I talk about a lot of things a lot, but yeah, I talk about Finn a lot. People hate it, but you know, it is what it is.
I'm not apologizing.
Finn as a character doesn't need to be fixed. He needs to have a story that does him justice, that cares about who he is as a character, that gives him the agency, the introspection that the sequel trilogy didn't give him after The Force Awakens, and even in comparison to The Force Awakens, dives so much more deeper to his past as a stormtrooper, his relationship to the Force, and what the fuck is going on with his future. Rey, on the other hand, is an entirely different subject, mostly because after The Force Awakens, less thought was put into who she is as a character and more into what she is. Here's the problem with all these different origins for Rey. None of them have answered who she is as a person. And here is my opinion on what you need to do. You need to take Rey and you need to not make her the lead protagonist that has to carry a story. She did that once. What Rey needs is to be the co-protagonist of a story that can explore her as a character while letting someone else do the exploration of the narrative where we learn more about their past. To put it simply, what Finn needs is a story that explores what he is, where he came from, and what will be his future. What Rey needs is a story that explores who she is as a person, and what does that mean for her future. It sounds crazy, but Finn and Rey having a story together would actually kind of work. Though instead of Finn going along on Rey's journey, she needs to go along on his journey. As he learns about himself, Rey can define herself. So we got Finn, who's got a lot of character, but really needs some better exposure. And then we got Rey, who's got a lot of exposure, yet really needs a lot more as a character. Give them a story together. A story that explores Finn's past and his future in a meaningful way, and a story that finally defines Rey as a character and as a person, not just a theme or not someone to use for some weird self-insert book that, oh boy, if I was you, Adam, I would really get a restraining order. It sounds so simple, because really it is. These characters didn't have to have their story made so goddamn complicated, but there are still people who care about Finn and Rey, and I know, some people watching this will say, what's the point of fixing sequel trilogy characters? And the point is that people still care about them. They care about Finn, they care about Rey. They care enough about these characters, even to the sense of wanting to criticize them or for them to have better stories, to make stories that fix them as characters, to make rewrites of the sequel trilogy, to add commentary on where their stories went wrong. You might not care about them as characters, but for better or worse, there is something good or bad about them that people still talk about, the wasted potential, their execution. So why not fix them? Maybe Finn and Rey should have a story together. Maybe they should have a story separate. But whatever that story is, that story can't forget that both these characters will always be a part of each other's life. And I think it is worth fixing these characters. Like I said before, these were the people who started the sequel trilogy, and I don't think characters should be punished for the mishandling of a studio. I have seen great characters destroyed by bad writing, and I have seen bad characters with potential made great from good writing. So I guess what I'm saying is continue Finn and Rey's story, and let's see what happens from there.
I literally got nervous doing that.
And that's what happens when you take too long in between takes.
Well, my friends, it looks like our time is at an end. This video I was getting requested day after day after day after day after day after day for literally months, so hopefully you enjoyed it. I'm kidding. I really wanted to talk about Finn and Rey. I've been waiting to do this video for months. Finn and Rey are two of my favorite characters in the sequel trilogy. It's crazy, right? I have so many criticisms about how bad their stories turned out, but I really do love these characters. What can I say? I love Star Wars. I really do. I don't really feel like bad writing should destroy a character, but I really did enjoy these characters. But hey, follow me on Twitter if you want to hear me rant more about the sequel trilogy characters and, you know, not want to listen to me rant in a video for like 45 minutes or however long this video is going to be. I hope you did enjoy this video though. If you did, how about you smash the like button? And if you want to see more videos from me, subscribe to the channel because I upload multiple times a week. And if you want to support my channel even more, consider becoming a Patreon of mine. It really helps me out, it helps the channel out, and it makes sure I can pump out more content fast, and I really appreciate it. But hey, you don't have to do it, and I appreciate every single comment, every single view, and I love talking to you guys. Talking about Star Wars is a dream come true of mine. Thank you guys so much for stopping by the channel. Be safe, be healthy, and may the Force be with you.